In the setup for Sirsasana A, first we're going to figure out if Hannah's going to be a student that has the fingers together or the base of the wrists together. Fingers, base of the wrists. So first we'll have her reach her arm up. Go ahead and lengthen. So for her, she's got a good amount of space between her elbow and her head. And we want the head and the elbow to be the same level for the Sirsasana A. So for her, when she sets up, we're going to have just the fingers interlaced, because what that does is it makes more of an angle so that we can have the head and the elbow on the same level. If she were to have shorter arms or a larger noggin or both, then you can relax for a sec. We would have the base of the wrists together, because for a student like that, in order to have the same level with the head and the elbow, I also have kind of a small head and long limbs, it's hard to see, but if my arm was the same length as my head, then I would want to keep the arm straighter in my headstand, hence the base of the wrists together. With that awareness, Hannah's going to go ahead and have just her fingers interlaced, and we're making a triangle shape between the hands and the elbows. Oftentimes, I'll say this once, twice, it must be repeated over and over in class. As soon as students get down, their elbows come in line with their head. So make sure you repeat enough for your students, and then from this position, she's going to lift her hips up, tuck her chin toward her chest, and place the top of her head down. Good. And then often, what will happen is when the feet start to walk in, just round your back some, the shoulders will start to dip forward. What we want to remind our students is by pressing the elbows down, root to rise, elbows press down, the tops of the shoulders lift toward the waist, keeping the neck happy. And then you can come on down, and then let's switch. So we're going to have you facing profile to the camera. Very good. So same work, she'll interlace her fingers. Okay, so we got space between the palms for her, and then that triangle shape, crown of the head, comes down. So oftentimes, another thing, just place your knees down. When students are setting up, lift your head up. Students who are newer will place almost like the forehead down, because that keeps their body in, or their neck in a straighter position when their hips are behind them. But what happens is when we lift the hips up and we walk in, then we end up in this sort of a position here on the neck. We want to keep the crown of the head down. So go ahead, tuck the chin in, place the crown of the head down, press the elbows down, lift the shoulders, lift the knees. She'll walk the feet in, and then one leg can lift. Oftentimes what students like to do when they're first learning, hug this knee into the chest. Hugging the knee into the chest gives the ability to move the hips further back, and then they can kind of tilt, like sticking the butt out to lift those toes up. So go ahead and relax for a moment. Students with more strength tend to prefer the controlled movement into their headstand, but for students who don't have that strength that need to jump, we're going to do the following. So go ahead, lift up. She'll lift one leg, and then we're going to bend the standing leg. Nope, that's your lifted leg. So straighten this leg, swing down and up, down and then hop. That's it. Oftentimes they'll swing down and up, and then the foot will land against the wall. Boom. All right, from here, we're going to use this knee pulling into the chest, this knee bending to move the hips, tailbone up, and then lift up. All right, come on down. Just getting a little bit more to the nitty-gritty of the hips in the headstand and how to work with students at the wall. I'm gonna have Hannah move a little closer to the wall. Same, tuck the chin in, lower down, lift the shoulders, lift the knees, one leg lifts, and then pretend like you don't have control, just bend down and up, boom. And then you can take both feet to the wall. Okay. When students land like this, the most common way of trying to get the feet off the wall is by thrusting the hips to the center of the room. But this is not the best thing for the low back. So what you'll encourage your students to do is instead sit back a bit, so the hips move back, lift one leg up, Good. Bend the knee just a little bit. Reach the hips up, inner thighs together, and then from this position, as a teacher, you can place one hand by their foot and then push into my hand and bring the other foot to meet it. Good. In headstand, there are options of what's happening in the toes. You can relax for a moment. All right. So with the toes pointed, it's a prettier posture. With the toes flexed, we have more of a target of the tailbone reaching to the heels, so that can help with the low belly engagement. So again, that's useful for students that tend to thrust their hips toward the middle of the room. And then I learned flointing. So that's said to evenly activate both the front and the back of the leg. Let's come back up one more time. So she'll go ahead, bend, and yeah, however she wants to get up. Cool. All right. So what's happening here is that low belly is hollow, the inner thighs are drawing toward each other, and good. The tops of the shoulders are lifting, and then we have energy through to the toes. That's the most important part. Okay, to build strength in the core for learning how to press toward handstand, you can have students who have already come into the balance straight, practice lowering the legs slowly. So with control, the hips move back slightly, the toes lower, slow, slow, and then you can have your students find their edge of where they can pause and then lift back up. Hannah could probably touch the floor and then lift up. Yeah, toe tap and lift. So there's a really nice core exercise. And then draw your knees into your chest. So pause. Notice how in this position her butt sits back, and then take the toes down. So take the feet to the floor. One way to have some students, especially those who are more flexible, work on their presses to their headstand. One more time. I have like tons of one more times. She walks the feet in, and then she'll start to sit her butt back, draw the knees into the chest, and sit the butt back more. Good. By moving the hips back, it makes the posture lighter in that lift up, and then press the feet skyward.